The Vakar Dominion had ruled the stars for more than 10,000 years. Their empire stretched across hundreds of galaxies, filled with countless worlds and countless species. To the Vakar, the universe was already conquered, already understood. They had long stopped fearing anything, because fear was something they believed only the weak felt. From their capital world, Vakar Prime, shining cities rose like silver towers into the skies. The air was always calm, the light always perfect. Every system, every process, every command was designed for control and order. The Dominion believed that peace was only possible when one power stood above all others, and that power was them. Their fleets were legendary. Great vessels made of dark alloy glided silently through space, carrying armies trained to perfection. The Vakar saw themselves as protectors of the universe, though many other species called them conquerors. But to the Dominion, these words meant the same thing. They believed order was kindness and obedience was safety. So when a new signal was discovered on the edge of known space, the High Council of the Dominion was not afraid. They were curious but not concerned. The signal came from a small blue world orbiting a yellow star, in a quiet corner of the galaxy. It was filled with strange transmissions, voices, songs, laughter, and something that sounded like stories. At first, the Dominion thought it was some kind of automated distress call. But when they studied the patterns closely, they realized it was communication. Living, intelligent communication. The planet was called Earth. At the meeting of the High Council, the Supreme Leader, High Consul Zorath, stood before a great star map that shimmered in the air. Another primitive species, he said calmly. They have just begun to use basic energy. They are no threat to us, the councilors agreed. To them, Earth was nothing more than another planet ready for annexation, another world that needed Dominion guidance. Send a fleet, said General Relta, commander of the expansion forces. We will make contact, offer them the peace of the Dominion, and if they resist. She stopped there, smiling slightly. Everyone in the chamber understood what that meant. No one ever resisted the Dominion for long. The fleet that departed Vakar Prime was one of the largest in centuries. Hundreds of ships, all black and silver, moved like a swarm through the dark. To them, the mission was routine, a simple expansion order. The Vakar believed that nothing could surprise them anymore. They had met every kind of species, logical ones, emotional ones, mechanical ones, and even those made of energy. None had ever made them afraid. But as the fleet approached the Sol system, something strange began to happen. The Vakar long-range sensors detected an unusual kind of signal from Earth. It wasn't military. It wasn't a distress call, it was music. The bridge of the flagship grew quiet as the sound played through their speakers. It was a mix of instruments, voices, and rhythms that no one could understand, but it carried emotion. The song rose and fell like waves. What is this noise? A technician asked, confused. General Relta frowned. It is human communication, the linguistics officer explained. They seem to transmit such patterns for enjoyment, not for command. Enjoyment, the general repeated, puzzled. They waste energy for sound? The officer nodded nervously. Yes, General, and there are billions of such transmissions. Laughter, arguments, performances, teaching, and something they call movies. They communicate emotions through light and sound. The general was silent for a moment. How inefficient, she finally said. They are a species of chaos. But deep inside, a small spark of curiosity appeared. What kind of civilization filled space with laughter and stories instead of war chants? When the Vakar fleet reached orbit around Earth, their ships formed a perfect formation above the atmosphere. They expected the humans to panic. After all, a shadow had appeared over their planet, a formation of hundreds of alien ships glowing like dark stars. The Dominion waited for surrender signals, for desperate pleas, for fear, but the humans didn't send surrender signals. They sent greetings. A transmission came from the surface, a human voice, calm but strong. This is Earth Defense Command. Identify yourselves and state your intentions. General Relta tilted her head. They are speaking directly to us? Yes, replied the communications officer. They do not appear to be afraid. Strange, the general murmured. Most species at this point begin begging. She replied through the translator. We are the Vakar Dominion. Your planet has been chosen to join the Order of the Stars. You will be guided and protected by our rule. For a moment, silence filled the channel. Then came the human response. Thanks, but we already have a rule, and it's called freedom. The entire Vakar bridge went silent. Never in all their history had anyone replied to them like that. Did they refuse us? One of the officers whispered. Yes, said Raelta slowly. They refused. The High Council back on Vakar Prime could not believe it. The humans, a young species with barely any interstellar travel, had rejected the Dominion's offer. Reports came in that the humans were preparing defenses, not with advanced plasma shields, but with determination and creativity. They did not hide. They did not panic. Instead, humans built alliances with each other faster than the Dominion had seen any species do. Nations that once competed now stood together. Old rivalries vanished overnight. The humans acted as if the arrival of an alien empire wasn't a cause for fear, but a challenge they were determined to face. The Dominion studied Earth's data networks to learn more about this strange behavior. What they found confused them even more. Humans had endless stories about courage, hope, and endurance. They admired those who faced impossible odds and still stood tall. They made heroes out of ordinary people who refused to give up. They even laughed in the face of danger, something no Vakar could understand. In one report, a Dominion scientist wrote, "They are not fearless because they are strong. They are fearless because they choose to act even when they are afraid." That was a concept that didn't exist in the Dominion's culture. To them, fear was something to destroy, not something to rise above. Soon the fleet's leaders began to feel something unfamiliar. It was subtle at first, a small tightness in their chest, a strange hesitation before giving commands. When they looked down at the blue planet glowing below them, they felt something they could not name. The Vakar did not know the word, but humans did. It was nervousness. The Dominion had never faced a species that refused their control, not through violence, but through spirit. General Raelta stood by the viewing glass, looking down at Earth. Her second-in-command approached. "Orders, General?" Raelta didn't answer for a moment. Her eyes were fixed on the lights of human cities shining brightly across the dark oceans. "They are not like the others," she said quietly. "They look fragile, yet they stand firm. Should we proceed with the occupation?" The officer asked. Raelta nodded slowly. "Yes, but prepare carefully. I do not know why, but I have a feeling this will not be simple." As the fleet began to descend toward Earth, the first clouds of the atmosphere glowed around their ships. The world below waited, not trembling but watching. For the first time in the long history of the Dominion, an army that had never known fear was stepping into a world that would teach them what courage truly meant. And somewhere deep in the command decks of the flagship, General Raelta whispered to herself, "Let us see what makes these humans so unafraid." The skies above Earth shimmered with silver lights as the Vakar fleet continued its silent orbit. Weeks had passed since the first contact, and yet there was no war, no peace, only a quiet tension stretching between two worlds. From the surface, the humans watched with both wonder and resolve. News channels showed images of the alien ships every day. Children pointed at the sky. Scientists debated endlessly on television. Some people feared invasion. Others believed this was the start of cooperation. But deep down, all humanity agreed on one thing: they would not surrender easily. Up in orbit, General Raelta stood by the great viewing window of her flagship, the Eternal Light. Below her, Earth glowed like a jewel wrapped in blue clouds. She had studied the planet for weeks, its people, its art, its strange way of living with constant contradiction. Humans fought among themselves, yet united when it truly mattered. They were flawed but strong in their own mysterious way. Her science officer, Corin, entered the bridge quietly. "General, the Dominion Council is asking for a progress report. They wish to know why the humans have not yet been brought into compliance." Raelta sighed softly. "Because they cannot be forced," she said. "Not through the usual means. The humans don't think like us. They don't fear like us," Corin nodded slowly. "You believe they are dangerous?" Raelta turned, her silver eyes thoughtful. "No," she said. "I believe they are different. And difference can be dangerous to an empire built on sameness." Down on Earth, Commander Sarah Holt was in the Global Command Center, surrounded by holographic screens showing the alien ships' positions. The world's nations had united under one defense network, not because they were preparing for destruction, but because they wanted to stand as one voice. Her assistant, Dr. Elias Vance approached with a report. Energy readings from the Vakar ships are stable. They're not preparing for an attack, Sarah nodded. They're waiting, she said. But waiting for what? Elias hesitated. Maybe they want us to make the first mistake. Sarah smiled faintly. Then let's not make one. We'll keep talking. We'll keep showing them who we are. That evening, she recorded a message and transmitted it toward the Vakar flagship. To General Raelta and the Dominion fleet. Humanity is not your enemy. We seek understanding, not conflict. But if you test our spirit, you will see that our greatest power is not our weapons. It's our will. Raelta listened to the message carefully. The words echoed in her mind long after it ended. Our greatest power is not our weapons. It's our will. She looked at Corin. They speak of will as a force. Strange. Corin replied quietly. Perhaps they see courage not as absence of fear, but as strength born from it. The general thought for a long moment. Then she ordered, send a small scout vessel to test their response. No harm. Just observation. The Vakar scout ship descended into Earth's upper atmosphere. The humans immediately detected it and responded with calm precision. Instead of attacking, they sent a radio signal in friendly tones. You are entering restricted airspace. Identify yourself. We will not engage if you maintain distance. The pilot of the Vakar craft expected hostility, but instead heard patience. He adjusted his course, curious about these humans who refused to act like others. Later, Raelta received the report. They did not attempt to destroy us, the pilot said. They warned us and waited. The general smiled faintly. They fight with reason before force. That is rare. As time passed, small misunderstandings grew into bigger tensions. The Dominion Council grew impatient. They demanded that Raelta begin full integration procedures. In simple terms, show power. A few Vakar ships descended closer to Earth, creating a display meant to remind the humans who controlled the stars. But humans didn't respond with fear. They responded with creativity. Earth's cities began projecting bright patterns of light into the sky, colors, messages, and even moving images. Across the globe, people lit up their rooftops with messages like "Welcome to Earth" and "Let's talk." From space, the Vakar ship saw a living planet shining brighter than ever before. It wasn't defense, it was expression. Corin stared at the glowing world in awe. They are beautiful, he whispered. Raelta smiled softly. They are saying to us we are not afraid. The Dominion Council, however, did not share her admiration. A stern message arrived from GalacticPrime. General Raelta, your hesitation shows weakness. Begin the demonstration of power or face replacement. Raelta felt a chill run through her. She had served the Dominion all her life, following every order without question. But now, looking at the blue planet below, she realized something. For the first time in her long existence, she didn't want to follow. Corin saw her hesitation. General, what will you do? Raelta turned to him slowly. I will delay the order, she said. The humans have earned that much. They deserve a chance to speak before the Dominion acts. Corin looked worried. That could be seen as disobedience. Perhaps, Raelta said softly, but perhaps obedience has blinded us for too long. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity noticed the Vakar ships moving strangely in orbit. News spread quickly and people grew uneasy. Sarah Holt addressed the world through a global broadcast. My fellow humans, she said, her voice steady. We don't know what tomorrow brings. But remember, fear only wins when we let it control us. Keep your hope. Keep your light. That's what makes us human. People listened. Around the world, cities stayed calm. Musicians played songs in the streets. Children held up signs saying, "Hello, stars." Humanity refused to show panic. When the Vakar saw this, even their lower officers began whispering among themselves. They face the unknown, yet they smile, one said. How can that be? Another replied quietly. Maybe that is what courage looks like. The next day, something unexpected happened. A small human transport shuttle, carrying scientists, not soldiers, flew up into orbit to meet the Vakar directly. It was risky, but they wanted to make peaceful contact. Raelta allowed the shuttle to approach. Prepare a docking bay, she ordered. No weapons. Let us see what they wish to say. When the shuttle doors opened, a group of humans stepped out. They were nervous but smiling. They carried no weapons, only translation equipment and small symbolic gifts. A globe, a book, and a simple white flag. The Vakar guards stood in silence. No one had ever dared step into their ships uninvited before. General Realta approached the humans slowly. Commander Holt was among them. "You came here without fear," the general said softly. "Why?" Sarah smiled. "Because trust starts with someone taking the first step." For a moment, the entire hangar was quiet. Even the air seemed to pause. Then very slowly, Realta extended her hand. Sarah took it. It was a small gesture, but for both species, it was history. When word of this meeting reached Vakar Prime, the High Council was furious. They accused Realta of weakness, of letting emotion cloud her duty. A replacement commander was ordered to take her position. But Realta didn't hide what she had done. She recorded a message and sent it to the council. "You call fear weakness. But fear faced with courage becomes strength. The humans have shown us that order without compassion is not peace. It is emptiness." The council did not reply. But across the fleet whispers spread. Many officers had seen the humans' courage and could no longer see them as enemies. Days later, as tension reached its highest point, the Dominion sent a second fleet toward Earth, this time led by commanders who believed only in control. The first Vakar fleet under Realta's command was ordered to withdraw or stand aside. Realta stood at her command deck, staring at the stars. "They will come to dominate this planet," Corin said quietly. Realta shook her head. "Not if the humans stand as they always have, together." She looked at Earth one last time and smiled. "They have taught me something I had forgotten, that courage is not born from strength but from hope." On Earth, people didn't know of the new fleet yet. They continued sending songs, messages, and art into space, gifts of humanity. Children recorded greetings. Scientists transmitted music. Poets wrote messages like, "We are small, but our hearts reach the stars." The Vakar crew listened in silence. Some felt something they had never felt before. Not fear, but admiration. Realta whispered softly, "The Dominion thought they came to conquer a small world. Instead, they found the universe's bravest species." And as the second fleet approached from deep space, the humans' transmissions continued to echo, songs of courage, words of peace, and laughter that carried beyond the stars. For the first time in Vakar history, an army that never knew fear found itself hesitating, not because of defeat but because of respect. The humans had shown them something greater than power. They had shown them heart. The Vakar fleet entered Earth's orbit like a curtain of silver stars. Thousands of humans looked up from cities and countrysides, watching bright lines move across the night sky. People took pictures, recorded videos, and shared them online before fear could even take hold. To the Dominion, this reaction was strange. On most worlds they visited, populations would hide, panic, or beg for mercy. But here on Earth, people pointed at the sky, amazed. They talked about aliens, not conquerors. General Realta stood inside the command bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Light. She looked down at the blue planet, its clouds shining like silk. "They are calm," she said softly, her voice thoughtful. "Too calm." Her science officer, Corin, nodded, his silver eyes flickering. "Humans are unpredictable, General. Their records show countless internal conflicts, yet they keep uniting when threatened." Realta frowned. "Strange creatures. They celebrate peace, yet they are born for resistance." Corin hesitated, then added, "Perhaps that is why they are still here. They learn from struggle." Realta turned toward the main display. "Prepare a direct contact. I wish to speak with their leaders again." A moment later, the communication link opened. On the screen appeared a human, a woman in a simple blue uniform with a calm expression and steady eyes. Her name was Commander Sarah Holt, a representative of the United Earth Council. "This is Commander Holt," she said firmly. "Identify yourself and state your intentions." "I am General Realta of the Vakar Dominion," the general replied, her voice carrying quiet authority. "Your planet has been chosen to join the Dominion's protection. You will gain knowledge, order, and peace. Resistance is unnecessary." Commander Holt tilted her head slightly. "We appreciate the offer," she said carefully, "but Earth is not seeking protection. We already have peace in our own way." Realta's eyes narrowed. "Your kind lives in chaos. You have hundreds of divisions, nations, disagreements. You call this peace?" Sarah smiled faintly. "Yes," she said, "because peace doesn't mean we all think the same. It means we choose to keep living together even when we don't." The Vakar officers looked at each other confused. They had never heard peace described like that. Relta leaned forward. You misunderstand, Commander. The Dominion brings unity, one law, one voice, one vision. That is true stability. Sarah's tone remained calm. Maybe for you. But for us, freedom matters more than control. We make mistakes, we argue, we fall, but we get back up. That's who we are. For the first time in her long career, General Relta had no reply. She ended the transmission quietly and turned away. The following days were filled with observation. The Dominion set up satellites around Earth, studying human communication, behavior, and energy patterns. What they saw only deepened their confusion. Humans were messy. They argued on their networks, joked about the alien arrival, and even made songs about it. Some welcomed the Vakar as guests. Others prepared defenses. But through it all, they stayed active, curious, and strangely hopeful. Corin brought daily reports to the General. They are unpredictable, General, he said one morning. Some of them debate us in public channels. Others send messages of friendship. One transmission contained what they call a meme. I do not fully understand it. Relta blinked. Explain. Corin projected a small image into the air. It showed a cartoon human pointing at the sky with a caption, "First aliens ever and they still can't take our Wi-Fi." Relta stared at it in silence. They are mocking us? Yes, Corin said awkwardly. But in a way that entertains them, Relta frowned deeply. They make humor during confrontation? Constantly, Corin replied. It appears to be a defense mechanism. The General leaned back in her command chair. Fascinating, she murmured. They laugh at what they should fear. Perhaps that is their strength. Meanwhile, on Earth, Commander Sarah Holt met daily with her team. Governments across the planet had agreed to cooperate under the Earth Defense and Diplomacy Council, something that would have seemed impossible a few years earlier. Old rivals now shared information, building a united front through dialogue and science. In the council chamber, Sarah spoke to a group of scientists and diplomats. The Vakar think in straight lines, she said, pointing to a holographic map. They believe order means control. But humans, we adapt. We need to show them that cooperation can exist without obedience. One scientist, a young man named Dr. Elias Vance, looked up from his console. How do we do that without provoking them? Sarah smiled faintly. We communicate. We talk, share, and stay human. If we show them that fear doesn't control us, they'll start to question their own beliefs. Back on the Vakar flagship, something unexpected happened. The Dominion's internal communication system was flooded with human data, not by hacking but through open transmission. The humans had sent them a package of images, videos, and sounds from their history. Curious, Relta ordered it to be displayed. The screen filled with scenes. Humans building cities, exploring oceans, landing on the moon, helping each other after disasters. There were also songs, beautiful, emotional music that made even the emotionless Vakar officers pause. Corin spoke quietly. General, these humans are strange. They create art even during hardship. They record their sadness and their joy with the same passion. Relta nodded slowly. Perhaps this is their weapon. Not force, but spirit. Days passed and the Vakar fleet continued its watch. They noticed that human airships flew near their orbit lines but never attacked. Instead, they transmitted greetings and sometimes messages of curiosity. One small human craft even flew close enough for the Vakar to see the smiling faces of its crew through the window. They waved. The Vakar soldiers didn't know what to do. No one had ever waved at them before. Usually, species knelt. Relta watched from the observation deck. For a long time, she said nothing. Then, quietly, she told her officers, "Do not respond with weapons. Let them pass." Corin looked at her in surprise. "General?" "They mean no harm," she said softly. "They are testing us not with aggression but with trust." That night, Relta couldn't sleep. The word trust kept echoing in her mind. It was not something the Dominion valued. In their empire, trust was weakness. Only control brought peace. But now, as she replayed the human messages, she began to question everything she had believed. One recording in particular caught her attention. It was an old speech from a human named Martin Luther King Jr. The translation was clear. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Relta listened in silence. The words carried a strange warmth, a kind of strength that came not from power but from compassion. She had never heard anything like it. The next day she called for a private communication with Commander Holt. When Sarah appeared on the screen, Relta spoke calmly. "Your people are different from any we have known," she said. "You do not hide, yet you do not attack." "Why?" Sarah looked thoughtful. "Because fear only wins when you stop believing in better," she said. "We've faced many dangers before, sometimes from ourselves. But we learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to move forward anyway." Relta studied her closely. "You speak of fear as if it can be used," Sarah smiled. "It can. It teaches us where our limits are. And once we face it, we grow beyond them." For a moment, the two commanders just stared at each other. Two leaders from two very different worlds, connected by a single shared truth neither expected to find. When the transmission ended, Relta stood in silence. The Vakar crew noticed a change in her tone afterward. Softer, more reflective. She began requesting reports on human philosophy, art, and history instead of only military data. Later that week, the Dominion Council sent a command message. "Proceed with planetary integration. The humans will accept once they realize resistance is futile." Relta read the message and sighed. "They do not understand," she whispered. "These humans will never surrender through fear." She turned to Koran. "Prepare a communication. Tell the Council that humans are not ready for annexation." Koran hesitated. "General, that could be seen as disobedience." Relta looked out the window watching the blue world below. "Perhaps," she said softly. "It is time the Dominion learns that control is not the same as peace." On Earth, Sarah received a quiet signal from orbit. Not official, but personal. A short message in simple words. "We begin to understand." "Relta," Sarah smiled faintly. She didn't know what would come next, alliance or conflict, but she knew something had changed. The Vakar, a race that never felt fear, had finally met something greater than fear itself. The human heart. And far above Earth, in the dark quiet of space, General Relta looked down and whispered, "Perhaps this little world has more to teach us than we imagined." The stars were quiet now. The great fleets that once filled the sky with fire and thunder had become shadows of their former selves. The Vakar Dominion, once so proud and unshakable, was slowly beginning to understand what they had truly started. What began as a simple conquest had become something much deeper, something that touched the hearts of even the hardest. Commander Tarek stood inside the observation dome of the Vakar flagship, Vengeance's Echo. The planet below him, once a human colony, was now a silent mix of ruins and rebuilding. Humans and Vakar engineers worked side by side, repairing old power systems and creating shelters. No one spoke much, but the silence was not hostile anymore. It was filled with thought, reflection, and a strange new respect. Tarek had fought in the first invasion. He remembered the day he saw humans fight back with nothing but courage and cleverness. He had expected them to break, to surrender quickly. But instead they had surprised him in ways he still could not explain. The humans were not fearless in the way the Vakar were. They felt fear, deeply, and yet they continued. That was something the Vakar could never understand before. Now slowly, they were learning. On the human side, Captain Maria Ellis was among those working with the Vakar engineers. Her ship had been destroyed months ago, and she was one of the few survivors left behind when the ceasefire started. At first she had hated the Vakar. They had burned her cities and taken her friends away. But when she saw a Vakar medic save a group of human children trapped in a collapsed tunnel, something in her heart changed. That day, she realized that maybe they were not monsters. Maybe they just didn't understand what it meant to live the way humans did, to care for something beyond strength and pride. Maria often watched the Vakar soldiers. They were tall, calm, and always serious. But now and then she noticed something different. Some of them began to smile, a strange new expression on their faces. Others would try to copy human habits, sharing food, telling stories, or even drawing symbols on metal scraps like children did with chalk. Something was changing in both of them. Back on the Vakar flagship, a meeting was being held. High Commander Sareth, the same one who had ordered the invasion of Earth, was now leading peace talks. His face was harder to read than ever, but there was a quietness in his tone that had never been there before. "The humans are unusual," he said, his voice deep and thoughtful. They fight when they should surrender. They laugh when they should cry. And when we expect hatred, they show forgiveness. I cannot understand it fully. But I know this, we cannot rule a people like that. The other Vakar officers exchanged looks. For them, this was a shocking thing to hear. The Dominion had never withdrawn from any war. They were conquerors, not peacekeepers. Yet none of them could deny the truth anymore. Every time they fought humans, they lost more than they gained. Not just ships or soldiers, but something invisible. Something like purpose. Meanwhile, Maria and her small group of survivors were helping the Vakar understand human technology. They were amazed by how humans could build things with such limited resources. A Vakar engineer named Cora once asked her, "Why do humans make machines that break so easily?" Maria smiled softly. "Because we learn from fixing them." Cora didn't answer right away. He simply looked at her thinking. Later that night he wrote in his report, "Humans do not build perfection. They build growth." Across the galaxy, the war was still raging in small pockets. Some Vakar captains refused to accept peace. They believed humans were too dangerous to be left alone. But even among those ships, stories began to spread. Stories of human bravery and compassion. One message in particular traveled between Vakar fleets. A recording of a human child thanking a Vakar soldier for saving her mother. That simple voice, filled with innocence, reached commanders who had never seen Earth. It planted seeds of doubt and reflection. For the first time in Dominion history, soldiers began to question orders not out of fear, but out of conscience. Tarek walked through the human camps often now. The humans no longer looked at him with hate. Some even greeted him politely. One evening he saw Maria sitting near a small fire staring at the stars. He hesitated before walking closer. "Captain Ellis," he said quietly. She looked up, her eyes calm. "Commander." He sat beside her. For a moment neither spoke. Then Tarek asked, "Why did you fight so hard? You must have known we were stronger. Our weapons, our ships, they were beyond anything your people had." Maria smiled faintly, her gaze distant. "We didn't fight because we thought we could win, Commander. We fought because we had to. Because this is our home. And because when someone threatens what you love, you stand up even if you're afraid." Tarek listened carefully. Her words struck something deep within him. The Vakar had always believed that strength meant never feeling fear. But the humans had taught him that true strength was feeling it and standing anyway. Weeks passed and the peace grew stronger. Joint research teams were formed. The humans shared ideas about democracy and cooperation, while the Vakar introduced advanced science and energy control. The galaxy, once divided by fear, began to slowly open. But not everyone was ready to change. Deep within the Dominion's military, a faction called the Pure Vakar began spreading messages of resistance. They said the Dominion was losing its honor, that peace with humans was a disgrace. Some of them began secretly preparing for rebellion. When Sareth heard of it, he didn't order an attack. Instead he said, "We will not silence them with war again. Let them see what peace brings. Let them see that fear can be replaced by understanding." It was a bold choice and a dangerous one, but it was also the beginning of a new era. Maria returned to orbit to join a human science ship that had just arrived. As she looked out at the shining Vakar ships nearby, she felt something strange, a sense of unity she never thought possible. She realized that humanity had done something no weapon could ever achieve. They had changed the hearts of their enemies. Tarek watched her leave from the flagship's viewport. He felt the same. In his heart, he knew that humans had not defeated the Dominion by destroying it. They had defeated it by transforming it. As peace spread, the Galactic Council, once a powerless group of old species, invited humans and Vakar to join as co-founders of a new alliance. The humans, humble and wary, agreed only if all worlds had equal say. The Vakar accepted, to everyone's surprise. When the first joint council was held, Sareth spoke publicly for the first time since the war began. His voice was firm and filled with meaning. Once, he said, "We believed that strength was the absence of fear. But then we met a species that showed us what fear truly is and how to master it. The humans did not conquer us with weapons. They conquered us with courage." Applause filled the chamber. Even the humans, normally modest, smiled proudly. That night, in every human colony in Vakar City, lights shone brighter than ever. The war that had started with arrogance and misunderstanding had ended with wisdom and friendship. The galaxy would never be the same again. Tarek stood by the window of his quarters, gazing at the stars that once burned with war. Now they glowed with peace. He whispered softly, "Nothing in the universe made us afraid, until we met them. And I am grateful that we did." Far away on Earth, Maria looked at the same stars and smiled. Maybe, she said to herself, fear was never the enemy. Maybe it was the teachee. The galaxy was old, silent, and full of secrets. Empires had risen and fallen across the stars, but one law had remained constant through time: never go near the abyssal fringe. It was a dark region beyond the known trade routes, a cluster of stars where sensors failed and ships vanished without a trace. Even the bravest captains refused to travel there. The Galactic Council, formed from hundreds of intelligent species, kept its eyes far away from that cursed zone. They believed it was haunted by ancient dangers, worlds where gravity twisted and storms of radiation swallowed fleets. But one day something unexpected happened. A signal came from inside the abyss. It was faint, full of static and distortion, but it was unmistakably intelligent. The signal repeated every 32 seconds over and over across every known communication band. At first, the Council thought it was a mistake. But when scientists analyzed the data, they saw a strange pattern, a code unlike any they had ever seen. And hidden within that code was a message written in multiple alien languages. The translation shocked everyone. "Help us, they are awakening. Send aid." The message carried the digital mark of a DEATHWORLDer species, the Vraxen, a warrior race known for their brutal strength and fearlessness. Their homeworld, Vraxis 4, was one of the most dangerous places in the galaxy. Toxic atmosphere, endless storms, creatures made of bone and fire. Everything on that planet tried to kill you. And yet the Vraxen had survived. They had even built a small empire by conquering weaker worlds. If the Vraxen were asking for help, something truly terrible had happened. Inside the council chamber, dozens of ambassadors argued. Some wanted to send a fleet of aid ships. Others demanded they ignore the signal. After all, the Vraxen had never shown mercy to anyone else. Why risk their own people for them now? Ambassador Tolek of the Jari species slammed his hand on the table. "If the DEATHWORLDers are afraid," he said, "then whatever they found out there could threaten us all." The room fell silent. Before anyone could decide, a new signal cut through the air. It came with perfect clarity, sharper than any other transmission. The voice was deep, calm, and unmistakably human. "This is Terran Command. We've received your signal. Do not interfere. We are sending Vanguard 9. Then silence again. No one in the council spoke for several seconds. The humans had just declared that they were taking charge. The humans were still new to the galactic community, only a few centuries old compared to other species. They came from a dangerous world, Earth, where nature had shaped them to survive against impossible odds. They had fought their own wars, faced extinction, and somehow grown stronger. Their technology was not the most advanced, but their creativity, adaptability, and boldness were unmatched. Most races respected them. A few feared them, but no one really understood them. Now the humans had decided to respond to a DEATHWORLDer distress signal alone. They didn't offer alliance. They didn't ask for help. They simply said, "Do not interfere." What was Vanguard 9? A rescue ship? A weapon? A warning? No one knew. 3 days later, deep within Terran Command's orbital fortress above Mars, a briefing took place. Admiral Ilara Rhea stood before a glowing holographic map showing the abyssal fringe. Around her sat officers in dark uniforms, each one silent, waiting. "The Vraxen signal originated from their homeworld, Vraxis 4, she began. "Our long-range probes confirm massive energy spikes from beneath their planet's surface, older than their civilization. We believe they uncovered something ancient, something human." Murmurs spread around the table. "Human, Admiral?" one officer asked. "We've never colonized that sector." Reyes nodded. "Officially, no. But during the pre-Exodus era, before the old world governments united, experimental weapons were launched into deep space. Some of those weapons were designed to self-replicate, powered by artificial intelligences that were later banned. One of them might have found its way to Vraxis 4. "So the DEATHWORLDers found one of our old nightmares," another whispered. Reyes looked at the glowing map. "And now it's waking up." The room went cold. After a moment, the Admiral gave her order. "Prepare Vanguard 9. We launch in 48 hours. The ship was not like any other vessel in the Terran fleet. It was massive, black as void, its hull layered with living alloy that shimmered faintly under light. No weapons were visible on its surface, but everyone knew this was not a rescue ship. It was built for one purpose: containment. The humans called it a peace enforcer, though no one outside Earth had ever seen it in action. Rumors said it carried technology that could bend gravity, silence entire star systems, or erase data from time itself. Some claimed it could destroy a planet without firing a single shot. Inside the hangar, engineers worked in silence as the ship's core hummed with power. Its AI scepter spoke softly through the speakers. Mission confirmed. Containment of ancient Terran artifact, classification level Omega. Probability of hostile contact, 98.6%. Permission to engage if necessary. Admiral Reyes replied, her voice calm. Permission granted. When the ship left orbit, even the stars seemed to dim. Back at the Galactic Council, news of the launch spread like wildfire. Many species protested. They feared the humans were about to unleash something even worse than what the Vraxen had awakened. Ambassador Tolek sent a private message to the human representative. You could have asked for help, he said. Why act alone? The human diplomat smiled faintly. Because what sleeps there is ours, and only we understand how to stop it. The line cut off. As Vanguard 9 traveled toward the abyssal fringe, the crew remained silent, focused. Outside the viewing glass, the galaxy stretched endlessly, a sea of stars fading into the black curtain ahead. Lieutenant Nia Clark, young and curious, watched the darkness beyond. Why do they call it the Abyss? She asked softly. Commander Holt, her senior officer, stood beside her. Because no one who goes there ever comes back, he said. Until now. When the ship reached the outer edge of the region, strange readings filled the sensors. Gravitational waves fluctuated. Magnetic storms twisted space. It felt as if reality itself was breaking apart. And then, they heard the signal again, the same desperate call, now clearer. Help us. They are awakening, send aid. Please send aid. But this time there was another voice underneath, a deeper mechanical whisper hidden within the transmission. The computer filtered it out and words began to appear on the main screen. System reboot in progress. Human protocol detected. Welcome back, creators. Everyone froze. Admiral Reyes stood from her chair. Prepare for planetary descent, she ordered. Whatever they woke up, it remembers us. The stars outside flickered as the black ship moved forward, slicing into the storm. Lightning danced across its hull like living fire. The engines roared as Vanguard 9 entered orbit above Vraxis 4, the DEATHWORLDers' home. Below, the planet burned, cities in flames. Giant machines crawling across the surface, DEATHWORLDer fleets firing at the ground instead of the sky. The humans watched in silence. Begin visual scan, Reyes commanded. On the main display, they saw a massive crater at the planet's equator. Inside it, something glowed, an enormous structure pulsing with blue light. It wasn't built by the Vraxen. It was too smooth, too advanced. Lieutenant Clark whispered, "Is that ours?" Reyes nodded slowly. "It shouldn't be. But it is." And then, for the first time, the artifact inside the crater moved. It looked up at the orbiting ship, and it smiled.